All right, welcome everyone to the Town of Cedar Point Planning Board meeting on Tuesday, December 2nd. Call to order and roll call, Brad Smith. TJ Williams. Here. Michael Castellano. Here. Bill Davis. Here. And Tony Mitchell. Here. Welcome. We'll start with new business and a review of the minutes from the November 4th meeting. David will bring it up because there was an adjustment in one of the paragraphs on the voting results, so everyone will have a chance to just take a look at that. Okay.
Just want to make sure we got okay, we got me.
We had 2 nays and 4 in favor, and the motion carried 4-2. That looks correct. I think that is correct. Any other comments, concerns about the minutes? We have a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? All right, minutes look good. And moving on to old business, this was a item tabled from last meeting, rezone request RZ 2025 tag 03. David, you want to give us a quick review and to refresh our memory?
Yeah, I won't read through everything. The request was in your packet. We went over it in detail last month, so I'm not going to read through everything. The property owner is N&M Rental Properties. It was submitted on behalf of them by Tidewater Associates. The property owners are here this evening, as is their agent, Josh Edmondson from Tidewater Associates. They're all here this evening. They did want to apologize to the board. There was just a miscommunication on the date, and that's why they missed it. They would have intended to have been here. So just the overview, the property that we're looking at this evening is this tract of land that's sitting not quite on the corner of Little Bay Drive and Masonic Avenue, sits directly to the north of the Performance East property. Actually 2 properties here where the building is and their extra storage area back here. Here's a map showing the adjoining property owners. This is all the property owners that received notice of it. These are the ones that are actually physically touching the property. They include Prime Storage, Randy Campbell, Marsh Harbor Partners, which is Les and Fred Fredine, and then a couple LLCs, which are owned by Haywood Weeks. And then, of course, Performance East themselves. Here's a zoning map that was sent out. It shows that to the south of this property and to the east is currently zone B1. To the north is zoned R15, and the parcel and to the west of it are zoned rural agricultural. I provided a proposed consistency statement for either decision that the board makes. We talked about last month, I went through the land use plan with you and indicated that this property is not, or the proposed rezoning is not compliant with our land use plan because the future land use map shows that particular parcel in the future as being used residentially, where the request is to make it zoned commercially. So with the 2 consistency statements, the first one that's in the packet here would say is not consistent with it and therefore recommending denial of the request. The second one would be what you would use should you decide to approve the request or recommend approval of the request. Keeping in mind that this first paragraph is pretty much the same, indicating that it currently does not comply with the comprehensive plan adopted November 16, 2023. But after considering the proposal, the future land use factors map, which is the environmental map that we went over last month as well, showing that this property is not within an environmentally sensitive area. And these additional factors. So keep in mind, you should walk through these 5 factors this evening that you would recommend it for approval. So those are your 2 separate consistency statements, depending on which direction you want to go with it. You should go through these 5 factors that are listed on the screen here at some point in your discussion this evening. Last month, I did walk through the table of permitted uses. all of the uses that are shown in red are those that are only allowed in a B1 and not in a RA zone. Those that are shown in green would be allowed in an RA zone, but not a B1. Those that are shown in yellow would be those that would be allowed in either. So this is the differences, if you will, between what the current zoning is and what uses would be allowed. I'm not going to walk through it unless you have questions about any particular uses. We went through that last month. But there's a host of changes between these two different zoning districts. That's the shortened overview. If you want more detail on any of it, I'm happy to provide. I know we went through all of it last month.
And at this point, there's been no change in the application or the request at all since the last meeting.
There has not been anything submitted
Okay.
requesting a change.
The primary reason we tabled it was because the board had questions and wanted to hear an opportunity from the applicant to share their intent, what they envision, and maybe to answer some of those questions prior to opening to them. Did the board have any additional concerns, questions they wanted to bring up?
Not right now, but I do have.
Sure. Yep. All right, well then we'll ask the applicant if they wouldn't mind coming forward.
I want to apologize again for us not being here. It was surely important to us. I did review the meeting on YouTube. I watched too much of it, I guess, but I do appreciate y'all tabling to give us an opportunity to, because it is very important to us. And I want to start out, this is my family, my wife, Mary, and oldest son, Stuart. And I have another son that's actually the manager here at Performance East, and we all live in this area, so we kind of consider this to be home. We love this area and Cedar Point. We're proud to have a blessed business in it. We've been extremely blessed and got a big customer base and going extremely well.
Perhaps he's sick.
Yeah, he's sick tonight. So, and David, if you could put up the original survey, the original plan.
Sure.
Which kind of would explain a lot. So this is what we submitted to the town originally, to the state. Everybody we had to get permits and everything from, all the designs, the retention pond, the parking spots, septic, everything was designed for a future building, which is between the existing Performance East now and the retention pond at the rear. And we're hoping in the future to be able to build that building there in the approximate location it is now. And then the additional 2.7 acres would just basically be an extension of exactly what's there now by moving the fence back and give us the opportunity to circle around behind the retention pond to make use of that area. And of course, in doing that, we would fence it and landscape, and we feel like have done a good job in being a good neighbor. We think we've got a pretty good looking business as goes. So the intended use is exactly what we're using it for now. And I've heard some comments from reviewing the last meeting, so we're not really trying to change use, and we requested it to be B1 just because that was what we thought we should do. But conditional permit just to allow us to conduct the same business we're conducting today is what we're after, to be able to build that building that was pre-approved and just extend the existing usage. And if there's a conditional permit or having to come back to the planning board or back to the commissioner to vote, if I can't say that we never would want to do anything in addition to that one building, but the intent is for any time in the foreseeable future, that's what the intent was. Purchase the property as well as what we're trying to accomplish here. and like I say, if there's, any questions or any concerns that we can answer or provide you or whatever, we'd be more than glad to do so. Thank you.
Real quick, I'm Josh Edmondson with Tidewater. Just from a land use perspective, we do think that this makes sense to be developed as a commercial property instead of residential. If being that close to that existing commercial, again, just an expansion with the existing commercial to both the east and south. We feel like it does fit and make sense with that area. And in looking at other sections along Cedar Point, along the main corridor, it's not uncommon to have commercial abutting R15 or even RA. So we do feel like there is a precedence there. Understanding that this is kind of a little further back than being right along the traditional 24 corridor. But we're really not extending back. If you look at those some of those parcels to the east, we're not kind of extending back any further than some of the adjacent commercial is already extending back to Marsh Harbor. So we do feel like it fits here. And again, if there's any technical questions or questions we can answer for you now or in the future, we're happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from you?
Not for business owners. I have no questions.
Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I did. So I heard. I see the retention pond on here, and I heard somebody mention the retention pond in the beginning. Is the plan to leave the retention pond where it is, or is the plan to move the retention pond back towards where if we were to change the other property?
No, the retention pond would stay where it is as permitted.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, sir.
One of the concerns that was brought up previously is this area serves as sort of the face of the town because it enters into the park. And while the front of the business is very attractive, the current state of this holding area does have the appearance of a storage lot. Is there any plans from the applicant to do anything different with this from a visual standpoint for those people who may be going in and out of the park? Because this will be the primary thing that they'll see.
There's been some discussion about possible sidewalks in the future along to extend the sidewalk where it is now. And when that happens, I've talked with Mr. Free for your secretary about pulling those large or relocating them cypress trees. And I understand we can plant other things in place of those, but we intend on rocking from the sidewalk to our fence line now with the same type of landscaping that we have with the white rocks out front now, the full length of the property. So it will be a small strip of grass, a sidewalk, and then what your recommended landscape for the full length of the property. And I'm assuming on the rear of the property, we would have to have some cypress or some buffers, playing along the outside of the fence also. And there's already a wooded area there now that's not our property that, obviously would remain, so it doesn't bother.
Also, the additional land, the retention pond kind of limits the use we have if we get really tight. So we would be able to have a lot of the storage that we've got against the fence. We would be able to keep it more along the fence line, the existing storage right beside all this. Allow some more use. That is actually
On the backside.
higher piece of property than what we currently have.
You'll be pretty.
Any other questions from board members for the applicant?
Not for that, if we have other questions, comments.
Okay. I did want to open it the same, just for this topic, open to public comment. In case there was any additional public comments related specifically to this topic. All right. Yes, no?
One question. Are we looking at? It's always a question of.
Nope, there is one.
Oh, I'm
public
sorry.
comment.
We have public.
If you like, come forward and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
give
sorry.
Jane your name.
Sure.
Thank you for inviting public comments. I'm not too familiar with this process, so thank you as I go through this. My name is Vivian, and we've got some neighbors here from the Marsh Harbor Homeowners Association, and we do have concerns about this development and quite frankly are expressing opposition to this for reasons that I'm going to read here and describe, and then can also address any questions or concerns. So while we understand the desire for business growth, we feel this change would negatively impact our neighborhood in several important ways. The first one being the neighborhood character. We're a well-established, family-oriented residential community. Introducing a commercial boat storage yard directly adjacent to our homes undermines the quiet residential atmosphere that residents value and expect. And this was not a feature of the community when residents purchased the homes, and certainly not for the residents of Hopetown Court, which is the first street that is closest to the development, kind of in the R15 area, or I'm sorry, it's if you make that corner onto Little Bay, yes, where the cursor is, right over there. And speaking to your point, Mr. Pittner, about this area being the face of Cedar Point, we feel very strongly, and we very much appreciate that nature preserve area, and think that speaks very highly to what Cedar Point represents and what we value as a community, and extending further into that area with the commercial property is just, it's not something we can easily stomach with everything our neighborhood is about currently. The number two concern is property values. The homes located next to or overlooking a commercial storage yard are less desirable to buyers. I personally would be livid if my view and quiet was disrupted when explicitly purchasing a quiet and scenic neighborhood. Rezoning risks lowering property values and deterring families who seek a safe residential environment. Number three, the lighting and visual intrusion. The night lighting at Performance East is already pretty extreme. It floods down Masonic Drive, and I personally no longer enjoy walks down that area because the lighting is so bright. The boat storage facilities typically involve fencing, racks, and bright security lighting. And despite new lighting plans of the town, it's already a very overlit area. These features are not compatible with the aesthetics of a residential neighborhood and the adjacent nature preserve, and would diminish the quality of life for nearby homeowners. Fourth point is noise and seasonal activity. Even if traffic is not significantly increased, the movement of trailers and boats during peak boating season will create noise and disruption that Marsh Harbor residents do not currently experience. We're already experiencing a lot of issues with traffic during peak summer season, with a lot of traffic down Little Bay. So people will use that as a cut through. And I feel that a commercial property in that area just further increases the use of that private street as it exists right now. Number five, the precedent for future commercial expansion. So most importantly, this stuck out to me when I was reading over the application. The repeated use of the words successful business, it was used 3 times in the application for rezoning request, and that was very eye-catching to me. This sends a message to me that so long as any business is described as successful, it somehow warrants or grants expansion no matter the land use and zoning already in play. We already have a land use plan in place that has that as residential. So approving this rezoning sets a precedent for further commercial encroachment into residential zones. Once that line is crossed, it becomes much harder to resist future expansions and more intensive business uses. And I do note that the current applicants are pledging a beautiful landscaping, and I do not doubt that. What I do doubt is the longevity. Say if the business is no longer there, somebody else moves in and it's another commercial property that don't share that same concern. What did we set ourselves up for by changing the zoning? So in conclusion, as a small business owner myself, I'm not opposed to performance success, but rezoning this property sacrifices the integrity of Marsh Harbor's residential character. I would not ask that my business encroach into a well-established neighborhood, and I ask and urge the board to protect our neighborhood by denying this rezoning request and preserving the balance between business growth and residential quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, did you email me earlier?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I was gonna ask for that copy, but I already have it.
Any additional public comments?
I just want to say I agree with everything she just said.
I do have a letter that was submitted, if you'd like
Sure,
for me to.
we could read that.
This is from Laura Ziemba. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but earlier today to the Cedar Point Planning Board and Commissioners, I am writing as a resident of Marsh Harbor to express my strong opposition to the proposal to rezone the property behind Performance East from residential to commercial use. Unfortunately, I am unable to attend the meeting this evening, but I am emailing my concerns. While I appreciate the value of responsible business development, this particular request would bring significant and unnecessary harm to our residential community. One, preservation of residential character. Marsh Harbor is designed and maintained as a quiet, family-centered neighborhood. Allowing a commercial boat storage facility directly next to our homes would fundamentally disrupt the residential character that current and future homeowners expect. Two, impact on property values. Commercial encroachment, especially a storage yard, poses a clear risk to home values. Properties bordering or overlooking such a facility become less desirable to potential buyers who prioritize a peaceful residential setting. Three, visual and lighting concerns. Boat storage areas typically require tall fencing, stacked storage structures, and bright nighttime lighting. These are not compatible with the residential streetscape and will significantly reduce the aesthetic quality of the surrounding homes. Four, noise and seasonal disturbance. Even if traffic increases only seasonally, the movement of boats, trailers, and equipment would bring noise and disruption that residents do not currently experience. This change would alter day-to-day livability of our neighborhood. Five, long-term zoning precedent. Approving this rezoning opens the door for further commercial expansion in residential areas. Once this boundary is crossed, it becomes exceedingly difficult to prevent additional or more intensive business uses from creeping farther into the neighborhood. Conclusion. This request is not essential for business success, but it would come at a real cost to the families who call Marsh Harbor home. I respectfully urge the board to deny this rezoning proposal and uphold the integrity, stability, and quality of life that Cedar Point's residential zones are meant to protect. Respectfully, Laura Ziemba, resident Marsh Harbor neighborhood.
Thank you. Sure. Important.
I'm Dave Brownska, Marsh Harbor resident as well. Can I provide just a hard copy of what was read earlier? From Marsh Harbor. It was the one that was emailed, but here's a hard copy.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share a little bit as a Marsh Harbor resident. So we absolutely love living in the Marsh Harbor neighborhood since 2007. So I'm retired military, retired Navy from base Camp Lejeune and Cherry Point. So we actually have, if you all want to slide that cursor up, so we're the very first corner lot there. Right there, yeah. So we have a gorgeous location. And then as we talk about like home values, as all of us invest in our homes, right? We'll have a beautiful, quiet, peaceful place to live, raise our families and our children. So we certainly do have just that, which we are incredibly grateful for. And the realtors who keep emailing or calling us on a regular basis keep telling us that as well. So we just happen to be in the current real estate market that all of us are in. So also hats off to you all as a very successful business. So otherwise you wouldn't be here if you weren't already being successful. So congratulations on that. And then you've already heard, from some of the Marsh Harbor residents through, open discussion tonight, as well as the letter that was just read by David. So just want to talk about, rights that we all have. So we all have rights as homeowners, and then we also have rights as business owners. And so we do have legitimate concern in the neighborhood based on concern for our property values, but it's a layered discussion. So there's concern for property values, and I think every one of us in this room would not want to be in this position with the business, rolling right up on what we feel like is our doorstep. And then there are concerns too for that through traffic. This is something that has been ongoing in our neighborhood, and anyone can tell you that drives through our neighborhoods. Our streets are flooded with little kids out playing and having fun, and we have, issues with people, doing a cut through, depending on any given time of day. And so we've got speed bumps in, we've tried to get like a front entry gate. As you basically ran that corner on the little bay to provide, protection, for our little ones in the neighborhood. And again, the concern as we increase business volumes is that, people, with human nature, people take pathway of least resistance, to either go in and out or through that area. So that's certainly a concern for us. The other aspect, and David can speak to this in even greater detail. We've all been incredibly blessed through the state of North Carolina to have these boathouse walking trails for not just Cedar Point, but the entire surrounding community. And we've got the Cedar Festival that takes place now that continues to grow by leaps and bounds, and you've got a lot of local businesses that are there for that. So and then as you said, you drive down that Masonic Drive, and I'll just say this, so no offense. It's like, I think we live in the land of, waterfront, ICW communities. So, we're all of us are plenty used to seeing lots of boat yards. And I think we all know that boat yards can also become boat graveyards, okay, and trailer graveyards. So, I'm not saying that's what it's going to be, but I'll just say, being honest, my family, we drive that Masonic Street numerous times every single day since 2007, and it's gone from just beautiful natural forest, North Carolina forest there, to y'all being successful as business owners there, and now we've got just this, y'all have your front business where y'all do business in and out of the office and repairs and work on boats on the trailers, but we've got a huge storage area already. And so the thought of that huge storage area just being rolled out to basically the green thoroughfare right there, or the green belt rather, is, that just makes my heart sink to even think about that. So with all of that being said, I think one proposal that I would like to make, just for the sake of the community. And I agree, they have done a very nice job. I appreciate the nice landscaping that they've done, but again, there's no, we've got no barrier, there's no privacy, so, some of the people mentioned basically the light pollution that we're experiencing, right there on Masonic as you go down. So even though they've got beautiful landscaping, it's all low level landscaping. So there's absolutely nothing to provide any privacy or hide basically that giant boat yard that's there for everyone traveling up and down the Sonic. And I think too, like perceptions, right? We all know what perceptions can be. And so my proposal would be along where that chain link fence is. There's got to be security and security lighting. We understand that with what they're doing, but again, David can speak to this because they've already done some beautification with some foliage and trees there on Little Bay along that kind of entry or front area of the boathouse walking trail. So there's, the giant cypresses and various giant trees that can be put up that are, light protecting, sound barriers. And I think at least along the Sonic, it'd be nice to see some like layering of that, so you can have a very natural vegetative, kind of blocking out of light pollution, as well as just the aesthetics of everyone not looking at a giant boatyard. So, and then I'm going to wrap up here just in conclusion to maybe suggest a compromise, which I may get stones thrown at me here. But anyways, so we're excited for them being successful for sure. We all want that as business owners, as I am one myself. So I think, I guess a compromise could potentially be where it just is not so far down that there's restriction on the expansion. But in doing so, that compromise would actually have a company like a beautification project and a real beautification project, not just throwing up some baby trees. We're talking about, getting the big boys down, getting those, giant planters, giant equipment planters for your, lifting up, 6-10-year-old trees and creating like a new kit from the start, blocking out light pollution, blocking out sound, and have it layered so that we would create a real natural beautification project for the entire town of Cedar Point and everyone surrounding, so that if everyone who's driving down here, how the walking trails is, has that aesthetic of coming into that environment where they get to enjoy their time individually, the family, and etc. And also, it feeds into the Cedar Point Festival. So I think we actually have a real opportunity as a community to really invest in the town of Cedar Point. And accomplish a number of different things. I think that we're all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? No, all right, well then we will close to public comments, and just as a reminder for folks who may be new here or not do this often, this board will not vote to approve or deny this on a definitive basis. The vote would simply be a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, where the actual decision will be made. So I encourage you to come back to that meeting and share your opinion. That usually occurs at the end of the month, but it'll be on the town website as to when that happens. All right, David.
Can I just address a couple of things with the board, just so that everybody's kind of on the same page on a few things? The term boat storage yard has been used several times. I want to make sure that we're clear in that the town's ordinances would not allow this use to be a boat storage yard.
Okay.
As defined in our UDO, a boat storage yard is an area that people pay money per month or annually to store their boats. What we're talking about here is the use of a property where boats are parked that are there for either sales or service or repair. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with that. This isn't, the proposed use would not allow for people to pay money to store boats on that property. That is not allowed in a B1 zoning district at all in Cedar Point. So the boats that would be there would either be available for sale or there because of repair or service. That's number one. To speak a little bit to the landscaping requirements that would be required for the use of a boat store or a boat sales or service repair. I pulled up the UDO because I think this is important. Now, I'm bringing this up because the request at this point is not that of a commercial site plan, right? That's usually when we would go through some of this sort of stuff. But I think if as the applicant indicated a willingness to transition to a conditional zoning, right? If that's something that you all agree on to limit the uses to that of the use that they're proposing at this point, then it would be relevant to look at specifically what those requirements are for that particular use. If you did a general B1, then this doesn't matter because some of these buffer classifications would change. But for a boat sales or service repair facility property, there's a buffer classification of C. And when you look at what that would require, it would be on properties that are adjoining different zoning districts. So on our map, it would be this entire border right here, the northern border of that tract. It would not apply to either of these other two borders, just this one right here. But what it would require would be a vegetative buffer that is no less than 25 feet in width, that is bermed or planted to a minimum height of 42 inches, and that will reach a height of 10 feet within 5 years. There shall be a minimum of 3 rows of plants, and that should be placed 8 feet on centers, and 70% of which must be locally adapted live evergreen species, or the equivalent of these standards that incorporate existing vegetation and topography or other landscaping architectural designs that demonstrates compliance with these standards. So in other words, that will be, it'll be the same buffer that was required at extra space storage. If you've driven by there and looked at it, it's 3 rows mostly evergreens. They're designed for the sole purpose of providing that separation, if you will, between your more intense commercial uses versus others. Also, one thing that would be different than this property, if you'll notice, the landscaping that was designed for this property was designed prior to the town's UDO being adopted in July of 2019. It was adopted, this was approved earlier in 2019. Our ordinances now require that the landscaping be on the property, not in the right of way. And so there would be a 10-foot street yard buffer requirement along Masonic Avenue that would be set back onto the property. So currently their fence is on their property line. This would be 10 feet inside their property line. If they wanted a fence there, they would have to have that front 10 feet landscaped. One tree for every 25 feet or 3 flowering trees for every 25 feet. The regular trees have to be a minimum of 2-inch caliper. The flowering can be 1.5 inches. So when it comes time to look at the commercial site plan, any development of that lot, we would go through that in more detail. But I just want to make sure that the public is aware of that as well, that there are other requirements. There are lighting requirements that are now in place that were not in place when the property was originally developed. A lighting plan would have to be submitted showing that light is not going far off the edge of the property, and when it does go off the property, it's at a certain level. So all that has to be engineered nowadays with all of our commercial projects. So does that completely do away with the public's concerns? Absolutely not. But I just want to make sure when people look at these sorts of requests, it's easy to be very divided and not see that there are other things that everybody needs to be made aware of when you consider decisions or recommendations and when the Board of Commissioners considers things. So just want to throw that out there. There are some provisions in place to address some of these things, whether they're sufficient to solve the complaints that are raised. That's for you all to think about. But I did want to go ahead and address those since they were specifically brought up, and also to alleviate somewhat some of the concerns, not completely, but give a little comfort if the recommendation is what you approve. And I'm open to any questions on any of that anyone has.
So if I could, to Mr. Davis's comment earlier, the retention pond, who owns that permit, and would it be possible to move that retention pond?
So that permit is in the property owner's name. Could the retention pond be removed or be moved potentially? We'd have to look at how it needs to be redesigned to move that pond. There's just, could it be moved potentially, but there's things you have to look at when it comes to soils. If the soil's better conducive to the pond type we have now, we have to change just a lot to look into. So I couldn't definitively tell you if we could move it or not. It'd be something we have to look at.
So before I go into my comments, I'm going to have some questions for David. I'm going to make some comments, and then I've got questions for the Marsh Harbor residents and then the property owner. So for David, if you could just re-baseline everybody on the comprehensive plan, like what's the character spirit for Cedar Point? I think that's one of the open-in pages that we have for it. And then if you can just refresh everybody on the business overlay district, the 2458 interchange. I just want to, but first, what's the character that we agree upon back in 2023? Is I just want to.
Yeah. So you're talking about the future land use map specifically?
No, where we just want to be was it a small town character?
You're talking about this page, the goals and implementation.
Yes.
So the next page, there's the community.
Small
vision.
coastal community. Prioritize the needs of the residents. We will strengthen our identity as a recreational oasis, providing ample amenities for our residents while protecting our many natural resources. Ensure land use compatibility, multimodal transportation, embrace recreational identity, maintain small town feel, and strengthen community resilience. So, and then if you can go over the business overlay, what's the 2458 interchange? That's where our high intensity use is going to be, right?
So we have a central business overlay district that's in our zoning. It is no longer a feature of the comprehensive plan. So the old comprehensive plan recommended it. The ordinances then adopted the central business overlay district. But there's nothing that speaks to it in the comp plan at this point, other than referencing that it exists. But basically it's 2,000 feet, I believe, from the intersection of 24 and 58.
Arc.
Yeah, it creates an arc. Let me see if give me just a second. I may have it shown on another map that I can pull up if, yeah, I haven't recreated that one. I can kind of draw it out for you if that's helpful. So if I go to
Measure.
and let me close this georeferencing. Sorry. And then measure from the intersection out roughly 2,000 feet. It comes right in through here. So here's the 3-story medical building. Here is the old Dan Fortin's contracting, and then it comes up to what is now Pirate Plumbing and Outdoor 301 or 301 Outdoor. Comes out to that area.
Okay, and then just to re-baseline everybody, please remind us, what's the max building height in B1?
B1, I believe it's 45 feet. Let me double check. Mostly throughout the town, it's 40 feet.
You got that front facade as you put on top of a building.
Well,
Cover
in all of our districts, if you're using a parapet roof, we measure to the flat roof. We don't measure to the top of the parapet. Otherwise, if it has some sort of gable or ridge, then we measure to the ridge. But let me get down to it. Sorry if I'm making some of you sick if you're looking at the screen.
I'm used to this, David. Not everybody else is.
There we go. So on a B1, there's B3, B2. Uh, 40 feet. It is. This one's 40 feet as well.
So 40 feet. Okay. Can you go back to the comprehensive plan one more time, please?
Sure.
And then just want to read out land use compatibility. Characterize future land use and development patterns. Establish integration criteria and concepts to minimize conflicts. So I mean, again, I'm going to open up with some comments and then I've got questions. So I've been on the board for many years. So I mean, I've seen reviews and plans for the Healthplex, they're going to call our new hospital, Tractor Supply, Bojangles, Go Gas, the storage unit y'all mentioned across from Tractor Supply, the 3-story medical building, the Bridgeview neighborhood, the multifamily neighborhood in back of Go Gas. So I've seen all those reviews. So I've got a overview of the entire Cedar Point. Not focused on any specific neighborhood. We have seen before this panel where successful businesses on the Highway 24 corridor did start going deeper into neighborhoods. So one is off of Bell Street. So if you go down Bell Street in back of Sound Furniture, you'll see how tall is that building? Right next to a house. That's something that happened. And then if you got Cedar Lane, there was another conversion. So that went from residential to business. They built that multi-story building next to a resident residential home on Bell Street. There was another proposal that came before us on Cedar Lane, attempted to go from residential to business. They were going to do RV boat. So we've seen that in the past. So it's not the first time happening here. And so I share that with you because prior to that comprehensive plan in 2023, it's guided me, and I know other members of the panel, has been focused into businesses on 24 and not reaching in too deep off of 24 because our town is narrow. I mean, we're on a peninsula, and if you start going too far down off of 24, you start bumping into homes. And so I just share with you is that what I've looked at in the past. And so some of my questions go off of, I want to start with the homeowners. I'm glad you're here because you were absent last month. So one of my questions is, when did you find out about this? Were you aware of it last month? No?
Found out about it when Jane posted the thing on our Marsh Harbor
Okay.
website.
So in a way, so I'm glad you're here, and you need to come to the commissioners meeting at the end of the month because your input is very important. And so last month, Mr. Doug Pittner voted no based on at least for me, what was the comprehensive plan that we adopted in 2023 and what I have done in the past, because based on feedback that we've received for other things that dealt with Marsh Harbor, other things that dealt with Megan's Bay, with Bridgeview, I just could sense what the tone would be, even though you weren't here, but I'm glad you're here because you validated my sense. You validated, in my mind, a comprehensive plan that we adopted in 2023. Another question for the residents. So the business, Performance East, they own the land. It's rural agricultural. What would your thoughts be if it was rezoned to R15 with the potential for multifamily? What are thoughts on that?
Thank you for asking these questions. What was done where the boat has preserved, like that's such a thing of beauty. And my ideal for that spot would have it be zoned something similar. Just nothing would ever go in that spot. It would just be nature, a buffer for the neighborhood. You go down Masonic, you see the preserve and the similar landscape going into it, and that would be it. So I can't speak for everybody, but it looks like they're nodding their heads. And we have just become accustomed to that. And we have a beautiful wooded established neighborhood that is a hallmark defining feature. We had in the plans for the neighborhood, there was trees in the middle of the roads, which did annoy a lot of people, but that's the characteristics of our neighborhood. And so even seeing that lot thinned and seeing that wooded area thinned out was alarming to me. I was immediately raised, what is going on here? What are we doing? What is this doing to the character of the neighborhood? So there you go. That's my wish for that.
I mean, that's just for commentary of what's happened in the town for the past 15 years. I'm gonna say that residents may come. I mean, we've gone from rural agricultural to residential in other areas of this town. And I would just be honest with you is that if a proposal came to me and for residential, I probably would vote in favor. I'm just commentary, just thinking right now, nothing being proposed, but that's but it's just responsible development of the area. I appreciate you for the property owners. So do y'all live in Cedar Point?
No, we live in Cape Colorado.
Okay.
I don't distinguish one area and I drop the full stop sign. I do own the business here.
Do you live next to a boat business?
Live next to a canal and a boat ramp.
Okay. And then Performance East, is this, do you have another business location also? Where at? Well, so you had, so 2 locations. And then in the back of my memory banks, was there ever talk about having a bed and breakfast on that property at some point, or maybe making a small, like a rental property to bring tourists on board?
Not from us.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because the
Going back up and say that I did talk with David, recommended they thought that would be something that would be good there early on. When the town was thinking about purchasing the property, and did not, and we purchased it.
Okay.
Basically, the expansion of our business.
Okay,
So I have heard that comment, but we never viewed it that.
okay. And then you bought that property knowing it was zoned rural agricultural.
No, sir.
You bought it, what was it zoned when you bought it?
I'm not sure, but I will know tomorrow.
So how long has it been zoned rural agricultural? As long as I can remember, right? So you bought it rural agriculture, you bought it knowing that. So, because I mean, it's, you know, again, I'm gonna make a commentary on here. I'm amazed at how many storage units we have around here. Boat businesses, I mean, it's great. You have a successful business. Anything that goes on 24, we just have a very unique traffic pattern, low 35 miles an hour, 30,000+ vehicles a day on 24. Unique with out of towners coming to visit here. Phenomenal. You're not the only one with phenomenal business. You got furniture stores. They'll have a furniture store here at Cedar Point, does much better than one located in Morehead City. Just the customer base here, very unique. And then
I can't give you a firm answer.
uh-huh.
I just pulled up just a couple older land use map or zoning maps. It was zoned RA, as was well, I'll just pull it up on the screen here for you. In 2011,
Yeah.
Here's the zoning map. And that back parcel was zoned RA, and then the parcel that's currently being used, you can see the front was zoned B1, but that next one back was zoned RA as well. And that changed sometime between 2011 and 2018. Because in 2018, this is what it looked like. So. But yeah, as far as my knowledge is, as far back as I know it goes, it would have been RA.
Okay.
Because it adjoined the property that was owned by the Jones family that was seeking to preserve as much as they could back then.
Okay. And then and David, since you brought up that map, can you pull up Bell Street and Cedar Lane?
Bell Street and Cedar Lane.
Yeah.
Pull that up on the GIS. Well, Cedar, which one do you want first?
Bell Street. Yeah, so you got that.
Are you looking for zoning or just a map?
So the map, so you've got, okay, do you have zoning, can you do that overlay?
I can't do that on this map.
Okay.
I can do it on the other map. Give me just a second.
So I just look at where business has slowly worked its way back into.
This is Bell Street right here.
Right, so you got that lot 121 was originally residential, then you got right next to that house. And then on the next where your cursor is, that's where they try to make that at one point business, because they're going to put boat and RV storage, but then you had all the multifamily homes right there. So that came before us, and we kept it residential. Because I mean, there's a need for residents around here, whether multifamily or single family. There's just not enough homes. People want to move here. People want to enjoy the water. People want to buy boats and go on the water. I got that, but what's the balance? Is what we got in this town. That's all I have.
Okay. RA again. What can I do in an RA?
All right, so we'll go back to the agenda packet. So anything on this list that is shown in green or yellow would be allowed. So accessory buildings are generally allowed in most, they're secondary, so don't count that. Agricultural uses, bed and breakfast, a bona fide farm, cemeteries, condominiums or apartments as a special use, so they need a special use permit. Child daycare, docks, duplex dwellings, efficiency units, single family housing, townhouse dwellings, family care homes, farm stands, funeral homes.
Okay, all right. So I could go in there and have this and put all that in there and have how many multifamily homes in there as a guess. So now how much, and I don't need an answer. And how much traffic am I adding now to the system at that corner with houses right there that clear cut all those trees and build multifamily housing at your intersection? I'm not saying it happened. I'm saying that's doable under the ordinances. We have the constant complaints about traffic. And every household has more than one car. Just the way it is these days. Some of them have 3 or 4. So you're adding, every time you go add housing, you add cars. It's a given. When I moved over into Crystal Shores, everybody's going, I remember that was trees. Same way with Megan's Bay and Marsh Harbor. I remember that was trees. Well, they're not anymore. So we've got that issue. And it's a balance issue. What I guess my point would be, since it's zoned a certain way and somebody could come in there and clear cut it tomorrow, we're going to have the same issues that they're facing. It's going to be the same issues. I mean, we're hitting that all the time. So we got to bounce that up. Would it have been nice if the town could have bought that property because it is the entrance in there toward where we have the Cedar Fest in the park? Yes, it would. Could Performance donate a part of that if they don't need all of it to the town and maybe give a 50 or 40-foot buffer in there? I don't know. To make some, create some savings issues, keep some trees up. I don't know. But the issue becomes, what do we want to have in there? We're saying we can't, we'd like to have something different than maybe boats for sale or service in there. So what do we want in there? If it's nothing,
I would say it's
can we say nothing?
I would say not that, not B1.
Not B1. Okay. Would you do a contingent B1?
I'd say not B1. I'm good with residential. I mean, we got multifamily homes in back of Go Gas. People,
I know that. I know that. But do we like that?
I'm fine with it.
Oh, okay, fine.
And people are living there. They're happy.
I got that.
And I think with everything that the residents laid out, and my personal experience is going back there with the lighting, the storage, I'd rather have a multifamily home or single family homes.
Okay.
Than just a business like entity just extending back towards.
I understand it,
yeah.
but it's even the way it's zoned right now, you could still get stuff in there that presents a problem. So are we saying, that's what I'm coming back to, are we saying nothing?
No, I'm saying the current zone is good, and I am open to residential, but then as the review of RA says, residential going there, that's fine, it's allowed, and it has been allowed, and I have no issue with that.
Okay, fine. I'm just saying, it would be great if we could buy it.
No, but so that's what I'm saying is how do we
balance it?
How do we balance it? And I think that it would be out of balance if we went to B1.
Okay.
To answer your question, 10 units.
10 units
would be, depending on how it surveys, you might.
Depending on how it works out with septic and everything. Okay.
Please. So, David, can I ask a question as far as the land use minimizing conflicts? Is there anything that would prohibit them from taking the retention pond and all of these required environmental features? Because there's no question that they can execute the business as it is right now. And looking at that map, there's a giant retention pond that's obstructing their use for doing what they're doing now. So if we were to do a conditional use permit condition upon them moving all the required environmental features to the back property, I think that sounds like that goes, and I'm happy to have the homeowners weigh in on this, but if you move the environmental features to the back end of that, then that seems to minimize the conflict with the noise and the light and all of the other stuff. If the retention pond is going to be on the back end or whatever required features are on the back end, and that would free up that giant area that is a hole right now for the use of whatever needs to be done to maintain the boats. Now, I know that's not the plan, but is that in the realm of the possibilities for them to do that? And then we give a conditional use permit to push the environmental requirements on that part of the land and then free up the space closer to the existing structure.
I've done a lot of things in my life, but engineering is not one of them.
Very well.
That is an environmental decision that would require state stormwater permitting, and the state would have to be the one to give you whether that's even feasible or not, possible.
There's stormwater study then?
Yeah.
Yes. If Mr. Davis, if I may, so again, certainly that could be possible, but we'd have to do further investigation. Like there's no way I could advise my client to agree to that today without, that would be crazy. But I mean, is it possible? Potentially, but even moving it that much, you may hit soils where it just, we just don't know. So it's something we would have to look at before we could commit anything. So.
And I don't think we can make a rezoning contingent upon something like that.
Yeah.
Which is really the question proposed to us today is. Right. David, can you bring up those 5 questions that we should be considering? So
If we were to approve.
Right.
well, I think we're supposed to consider it regardless.
Yeah,
Because
either way.
the question on the table is whether or not to rezone this section B1, which regardless of the decision is against the comprehensive plan. And there's a contingency statement for both approval or denial. And as we decide whether to recommend approval or denial, these are the 5 questions. Because it is against the comprehensive plan regardless, these are the 5 questions that we need to take into consideration that can sway our opinion either for or against it. So the size and physical conditions and other attributes, benefits and detriments to landowners, neighbors, and surrounding community. I think we've discussed that this evening. Relationship between the current, actual, and permissible development on the tract and adjoining areas. Why the action would be in the public interest, and then any change conditions warranting the amendment. Just worth taking a moment to think about those. And then what I would ask the board for, if we're ready to make a motion either for or against recommending approval. And then the appropriate contingency statement.
I'm gonna. You ready for me to make a motion?
I made the last one, buddy.
All right,
I make one more comment.
yes. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not the. Reclose.
Sure,
Yes.
we'll reopen public comment.
Thank you. This will be quick. So, as TJ pointed out, about wouldn't it be great if it could be purchased back or retained by the town, and then also to help out, a successful business here in the area. So, one of the things I thought of for that area, so when we lived over in Swansboro years ago during our little people years, it was amazing to have that community center that was built in Town Point Park. So that's something I thought of for that area. Where we don't know, soil qualities and capabilities for movement of that retention pond, but the possibility of having a community center. Again, we're investing in the community and Cedar Point as a whole. And then we've got the beauty of the boathouse walking trail, potentially a community center for Cedar Point, and then potentially movement of that retention pond where, you know, accomplishes joint goal for both properties. They get, you know, some expansion and increased capabilities. We gain potentially community center for the, you know, entire community of Cedar Point. So thank you.
And David will correct me, just a level set. So the town did purchase the Cedar Point Gymnastics building with intent of creating something for it. And then recently it was a building property swamp with a church who purchased that property, the Cedar Point Gymnastics building. And the town does have property north of Tractor Supply for something. So there's the town does have property for something like the building.
Yeah, so so the town did own the former gymnastics building. We, the town, sold it to Grace Church, and as part of the deal, acquired the 2.39 acre tract that they had kind of diagonal across to it over on Old Highway 58, for the purpose of a future recreational type facility.
You want to trade?
That would be a board decision. If you want to talk to them on the 11th, you'll have the opportunity to make that request.
Is there an additional comment?
We're still open for public comments, but have a hand in the back.
Question about the 5 points. And I would like to know what the benefits of this expansion would be to the neighbors of the surrounding community. What does it benefit?
Okay.
But how would it benefit the community and the neighbors, Marsh Harbor? Is there an answer for that?
Yeah, well, that the applicant can choose to answer or not. That's up to them. But I had another.
That's one of your voting points. You know, to decide that. We can't answer that for you guys.
Mr. Williams, to speak to your point about what would go there. Yeah, the absolutely valid point, absolutely valid point. With that, if there were residents there, residents have a vested interest in the integrity and the character and the safety and the security of the communities that we reside in, especially for long-term permanent residents. And those interests and those values are very different from business interests. And there's no guarantees that if this business is no longer at this location, that another business won't move in with different intentions or thoughts that are completely counter to the town plan. And so that's where the interests of the residents, I think, do take much precedence over a business interest. So I just wanted to offer that.
Last call for public comments. Okay, we'll close public comments. Looking for a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes. You're public.
Point out in this situation. I think you mentioned, I thought I heard you say in B1 there was no boat storage allowed.
Correct.
Okay, and we're not talking about boat storage, we're talking about, service storage for a service customer. I noticed, the storage facility beside Performance East and then the one beside them, both RV storage, both have RVs and storage. Is that because
They're pre-existing. They were in operation prior to the ordinance.
And
there was a point in time when the board said enough's enough
I got you.
and changed the rules.
And wanted to point out that the back of this property or the side of this property does not directly adjoin any houses or property lines of homes. And there is a path existing back there now on our property line, and if you could view it, there's no additional, honestly, we can't go farther than our property line. There's a pretty large buffer of trees and undergrowth now. And, pointing out that the storage facilities that are there now do run right up to backyards of Marsh Harbor. We wouldn't, I don't know what the measurements are, but we're not close to any of the homes. Now, I understand lighting concerns. And one other thing to mention is maybe really minute, but during peak times of the season, when we have boats and customer boats on the lot, we get a little congested back there, so there may be one 40-foot boat that's blocking in 6 other boats. And to go back there and get one boat, with our John Deere tractor, you know, we may spend 12 or 15 minutes back there juggling stuff around to pull one boat to and from. Whereas, you know, we love to be organized and have everything lined up properly, whereas, you know, I wouldn't be scared to say we're talking a minute and 20 seconds to go to the back and grab one boat in an organized situation and bring it up to the front of the, you know, the lot to store it. So, I mean, there's different ways to look at everything. That's kind of one of the ways how, you know, doing it. And the only thing as far as the tractor operate is, you know, there's a reverse alarm, not that to be by code, if, you know, that has to be on there, but the reverse alarm is louder than the engine of the tractor, you know, operating. So just a few things.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, closing for real this time. Anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the rezoning request with the proposed consistency statement that is not consistent with the Town of Cedar Point Comprehensive Plan adopted 16 November 2023, because Implementation Act L1 states utilize future land use map as well as future land use factors map when considering any major development proposal rezoning or similar application for a change in land use or development in the study area. And future land use map shows that the parcel proposed for rezoning designated as residential rather than commercial and office.
All right, the motion on the table is to recommend denial of the application. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor? We have 3. All those against? 3. It's a tie vote. So then do we ask for another motion? Or leave it tied?
No, I'm trying to remember whether or not you only vote in the event of a tie.
Oh, well, I didn't
Let
know.
me check.
I think it is.
It's been a while. It's been a while since y'all had a split vote.
I know.
I don't think ever. I mean, we've had dissenting minority, but yeah, we've had minority votes.
Never had a 50-50.
We've never had a 50-50. We've had minority votes in the past.
Give me a second to take a look to see specifically.
Yeah, come on. John, first
All right, so section 2-21.3 of the Town Code of Ordinances The planning board shall select a chairman and create and fill such offices that may determine the chairman and other offices shall be for 1 year with eligibility for re-election. The chairman shall not have voting privileges except in matters of a tied vote to break the tie.
I therefore rescind my vote. Makes everything much easier. So we have 3 in favor, 2 against. And no, I'm sorry, we have,
So
the motion was to deny. We have 2 in favor of the motion, 3 against the motion. So the motion fails.
Motion fails.
And I'm looking for another motion.
I want to try something on a contingent. Can we do a contingent?
You mean, are you talking about?
Conditional, I'm sorry, conditional rezone.
So that's only with the consent of the applicant. So
Okay,
if the applicant is
So,
okay with the motion that you
let me,
make.
let me put my small brain together to try to do this. What,
You make the motion.
what I'm looking at is motion, and I'm not sure how to phrase this. Conditional rezoning, B1. But I'm trying to give a bigger buffer. Or is it, the buffer is minimum 25 feet?
That's the minimum. I mean,
Okay, so I'm looking at, can we do? In other words, I'm trying to get to where it's the Magens Bay, or, I'm sorry, Marsh Harbor. I'm next to Magens Bay all the time, so I say it. Next to Marsh Harbor, we got some better buffer so they're not seeing it and it's there. And at the same time, we're protecting Masonic a little bit with the vegetation because that is the entrance to a park. Which to me, if we can do that, it's a lot better than a bunch of houses sitting there. That's just personal on my part. And so I'm not sure how much of that we can ask to be done along with better fencing. So it looks better, it's buffered better. And of course, they got to comply with the lighting.
so what I would suggest is if that's the type of motion that you want to propose, that the board enter into that conversation with the applicant to see where there's agreement on whatever conditions are proposed.
Right.
Or would be proposed.
Right. I mean,
And then
recommending to the
and then once you have some sort of agreement, then you make your motion
okay.
that is aligned with what they've already agreed to. Otherwise, you're going to make a motion even if you agree to it, then it has no binding precedent whatsoever.
And I guess my concern is I'm trying to satisfy somebody that bought a piece of property and at the same time neighbors. And I understand, believe me,
They bought it as RA, they knew it.
I understand it. But when you're looking at RA and you've got B1 all around you, except that one little spot, then it sort of leads itself to maybe I can do this. I'm not saying, I understand the RA. A lot of people bought land here. But I'm looking if we can make it work. And my interest in this is I never want to see it developed as a bunch of housing for a lot of reasons. Traffic, we're getting all that, and I understand. Well, you got housing up 58 all back in the woods there. Let them go there. Because it's already giving us traffic. Now we have more traffic on Masonic, which is already crazy when you go down to Cedar Fest or any other day. And that's a big complaint is traffic. So why would we say, okay, let's just add 2 then? Again, personal preference here, and anybody can vote how they want to. So I'm trying to look at how we can resolve this. In my opinion, you can vote against it, but not just where I'm looking at. Yes, sir.
That's
Okay.
So
Chair will have to make a decision.
I'm gonna,
So in the spirit of minimizing conflict and holiday cheer, I really think from listening to all of these arguments, we're really not that far apart necessarily after everyone's had time to reflect. And I would, can I do a motion to table until next month in order to allow the applicant to come up with a plan that addresses the residents' concerns? Because I think looking at the map and hearing all this stuff, there's a way potentially for the plans to be brought forward in a way that addresses the barrier between the residency and the existing operations that allows for expanded operations. So I would do a motion to table until the next planning board meeting to readdress the issue.
we have a motion, table it. David, correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the discussion points are more site plan versus zoning. So the applicant is only applying and really only able to apply for the rezoning. I don't know to what extent they can put things like lighting and into a rezoning application as contingencies. Can they?
So that can take place. Because when you look at a conditional rezoning, basically it's a legislative decision. It's not quasi judicial. So basically you're writing new rules specifically for that one zoning district.
Okay.
That only applies to that one property or small groups of
Much
properties.
like the car wash did with their list of
Yes.
rules for this property.
But before you kind of take action on that motion,
Mhm.
I would open the floor again. I think anything other than a strong approval or denial would be to speak to the applicant and say, hey, is that something you're willing to consider? If we were to table this, would you bring back a proposal next month that self-limits yourself in some ways to sort of meet that middle? If they tell you, hey, let's just make your recommendation on what you have, then there's no point tabling it. You're just drawing the process out.
I withdraw my motion.
But I think you would want to ask them that first, because they may have some timelines that they're trying to meet.
Sure.
That you would be holding them on.
100%.
I don't know that. That's why.
All right, so applicant opportunity to share your thoughts here. You've heard a lot.
If you table it for 2 meetings, give it 2 months.
You would be willing to table it for 2 months to give you time to come up with a proposal.
Plus, well, there's a lot of investigation got to be done.
Mhm.
Doing all that, it ain't gonna happen.
Sure.
David, can I ask a question just to you guys?
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, table one is great. It gives an opportunity to address some things. From Town of Cedar Point perspective, code perspective, if we go a more conditional rezone route, do we need to amend application? How in-depth the site plans need to be, because we're kind of going down a different road, which is 100% fine. We can do that, but I just want to ensure we're not going to be up because 2 months still, if we're providing some site plan and things could be tight. We can try to make it, but I just want to know the expectation of, are we totally amending application here to go a conditional route? And if so, is that how you're seeing it, David, just for our?
So I think you can draft some language that imposes those regulations without having a site plan. We could go through a separate commercial site plan process later.
Okay.
But you could, just like we have our ordinances now that say, hey, a buffer requirement is this. For this particular zoning district, this conditional rezoning, we're proposing.
So it's basically more text oriented.
It can be either.
Okay.
It can be done either way. If you have the time and want to depict it and say, this is what we're applying for, and here specifically, we want this to be a binding site plan. So if we ever sold the business to someone else, or someone else wanted to do something, they're stuck to that specific site plan, you could do that.
Okay.
As opposed to being stuck to the text.
Okay.
There may be some variation in there between the two,
Okay.
and that's totally be up to you to what you submit.
I just wanted to, that's perfect. Thank you.
You would not, in our opinion, have to go through a separate application process.
Okay.
Just send us what you would be proposing at that point. No additional fees and all that sort of stuff. The hearing has already been opened. If it's tabled, it can continue to be addressed without having to be reopened.
And does the board need to table for a specified time period, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, or can the board table until the applicant is ready to return and make it indefinite?
You can certainly do that.
Okay.
Until you hear a definite, until there's a request from the applicant to put it on a date specific.
Okay.
On the
So
next
then it
meeting.
doesn't hold them to the 2 month time frame, and if they were to achieve something rapidly in a month, they could then do that as well.
That doesn't
More
put you in a
flexible.
bind, but as soon as you have it, get it to us and we'll get you on the next meeting.
Yeah.
Would that work?
And one thing, I welcome y'all to visit the property and walk that back property line. Our property is pretty much clear a trail along the back of the property line. And other than that eastern corner of about 15 feet, you could not stand on our property and see a home in Marsh Harbor. So, I mean, that 15 feet could easily be closed in with, cypress and whatever, but it's, I know you guys, I don't know if you visited it or not, but seeing it on a map versus standing out there would make a big difference. See that.
And then before we move forward with the motion, a lot of stuff discussed. Is there any additional questions from the applicant that they'd like clarification from as to the questions either from the board or from the public? No. Okay, appreciate it. All right, we'll close then for comments again. You want to remake your motion?
Make a motion to table the.
Until such time
Until
as the
such time as the
applicant.
applicant is prepared to represent.
Motion on the table. We have a second. All in favor?
Who seconded?
Two teachers. 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor. Those against? 1 against. Motion carries. We will table indefinitely until the applicant would like us to hear about it. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 5 is again public comments about topics other than this. Does anyone have any concerns? We'll open. And hearing none, we'll close to public comments. Item 6, any additional comments from the board members?
Right now, this is my last meeting. It's been a 6-year pleasure, whatever it's been. Jane, has it been 6 years? You guys didn't kick me off. The mayor just apparently never shows up and says anything. Oh, there he is. So it's been great. My replacement is sitting in the back. Stand up, Dave, please. Another Crystal Shores neighbor. We're everywhere.
So the Board of Commissioners voted at their last meeting to install Tony Mitchell in Joe Morello's spot. TJ Williams is moving to the Board of Adjustment. They made that approval at the meeting. And as his replacement, the board approved David Altry. So
You were
He'll be
appointed in
2017.
2017.
he'll be joining you next month.
All right, 2017.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your years of service.
It's been fun, Mike.
And now you can travel without worrying about meetings.
I know. Well, maybe.
No, I just wanted to publicly say thank you, TJ, for last many years. Also with Joe Morello. I
Yeah,
mean,
Joe was good.
the dialogue we have here between ourselves, between applicants, between residents, just makes it that more enriching and informative for the commissioners and for the mayor, because oftentimes the commissioners will sit in and it helps with us exploring a topic. It helps them when they make their final determination. So thank you, TJ. And thank you to Joe, who's not here tonight. And then I look forward to working with David and with you, Tony. And that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Would it be okay if I said something really quick?
Yes, you can.
I want to let everybody know, sorry, we're getting long enough, so. I post the agenda packets the Friday before the meeting. So I posted the November meeting on October 31st to the Marsh Harbor page. We also have a Facebook page for the town. We have an email program and the website. If you would like to be on the email program, we won't spam you with anything. We will just send you town business. Please come see me and I'll be glad to add your email to the list. That's all I have, sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor? We are adjourned.
Thank you.